Hello, everyone. Kelly Street here, of course, as always. Thank you for joining me as a listener of Clienting. I'm very excited about this episode because this is someone that I didn't know before recording. And that happens more and more the more people suggest themselves or suggest other lawyers as guests on Clienting, the more we're kind of widening our net. But Guy Sakalakis knew this lawyer that we're talking to today and introduced me to him to interview. So I'm very excited to be here with Ben Sessions, who is a Georgia personal injury and criminal defense attorney. So hello, Ben. Welcome to Clienting. Thanks
Hi.
for joining me.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. I'm
Yeah.
really looking forward to it.
I'm super excited because you have some topics to talk about that we haven't really covered with another attorney before. So Guy and I have talked about him a little bit, but not with interviewing a lawyer. So before we get into that stuff, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Ben Sessions. I've got 3 offices here in Georgia. I've got offices in Atlanta, Macon, and Columbus. I am, for the most part, a solo guy. I intermittently have some contract attorneys that work with me, but I try to do all of this stuff, juggling the cases and the marketing stuff for the most part on my own. And I have a lot of fun doing it. So I look forward to talking to you about it.
Very exciting. Okay, so I'm actually going to throw a curveball question out there because this wasn't something we had kind of predetermined would be a great topic to go into, but you've mentioned as a mostly solo attorney, you do have 3 offices. So how does that work? Are they virtual offices? Are they brick and mortar? Or what are you doing for those?
So they're real offices. They are brick and mortar offices. For the most part, unoccupied. I use them primarily for marketing purposes and for Google Maps for the most part. So anyone who's in an area where you really have a really heavy concentration in a metropolitan area, you should really look at other really inexpensive locations that you can go to that are, I think for me, my sort of geographical limits have turned out to be around an hour and a half from the state center where I practice at, Atlanta. So I looked at other locations that were about an hour and a half away, and I said, hey, those are areas that don't have such a sophisticated marketing by lawyers already there, but have good population centers. And I tried to target those areas to say I could not as really cost effectively target those places. So it wouldn't be as expensive as Atlanta to market there. And I could probably take advantage of some lawyers who are not as sophisticated about things and targeting those areas. So that was what my thoughts were. But those are real offices that are there. I'm not always there, but I can get some good cases here and there out of them, really for not very much money.
That is really smart. Like this is the kind of thing that we tell our clients when they're trying to build up their local SEO strategy is like, this is one of those things that is really easy to do. I just made one of our kind of like info marketing videos about this of like, hey, satellite offices, they're huge. So I love that that's what you're doing. Are they in co-working spaces or?
Whenever I first started picking the locations, I was very averse to the idea of being in a co-working space because I had always heard, I don't know whether or not it's myth or truth, that being in a co-working space was potentially problematic for Google My Business. And I'll tell you, that is a predominant driver of my business. So I'm very conscientious of, is my location going to be good for Google Maps? So whenever I was picking those locations, I made sure that they were not in co-working spaces. And really look at this. If you're in a building or in a location that's really close to a dominant player in that market, don't go there. It's well worth finding another location to go to so that you're not playing in the same space as someone who already has an entrenched marketing presence in that area. So I'll give you a good example. I was whenever I first went solo, I was with another guy for a long time, and then I went solo, and I moved into a building with a lawyer who was very sophisticated on local marketing, in particular for SEO. I never had a shot never even had a shot of really placing on the maps with that guy who's a really good friend of mine next door to me. It was great, being there and having that sort of symbiotic relationship where you could talk about things, that sort of stuff. But the business driver in terms of the internet was never going to be there at that location. So I didn't know that at the time. And then once my eyes sort of opened to this, I realized, like, hey, you really need to consider it whenever you're picking a location. It's a huge, important thing for you.
Yeah. And on the co-working space note, because we have over time kind of talked about how like it's really easy place to get an office and that sort of thing. And there are some things to overcome if you're officing in a co-working space, and in kind of like a high search needs practice area. But a couple of things to look for are co-working spaces that have suite numbers. And that's really helpful, or just kind of moving your pin a little bit for where you drop it, which can be, on the edge. And but that's one thing that I know people in local search will suggest if you're doing the co-working space route. But really, just finding a place that has suite numbers, that's what makes all the difference.
Right. Yeah.
Because then you're
it was weird. I moved into my primary office in Atlanta now is in a co-working space. And there was a really, there's a firm that moved into that same co-working space that people would never think that they would be in a co-working space. They're a big personal injury firm that advertises in Atlanta and Georgia. They can't get on the map there because I have like that space. I've sort of built up that presence. And I realized, I was like, oh, it's working. Once you realize that there's someone who spends a lot of money on it, but that they can't overcome your presence, you're starting to make progress on this thing.
Yeah, you're doing some good stuff. That's awesome. That's really cool.
It's just paying attention to it. It's not like a lot of work, but it's consistent work over time. I think that really makes a difference.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, that is the thing with SEO is like with SEO, you're playing the long game. With, PPC and that sort of thing. Like, yes, there is some stuff that you can learn and optimize over time, and that you will learn and optimize over time. But really, like, SEO is just you start and you're kind of building, and eventually you'll get the presence and the online profile that you are hoping to have.
Right.
So that is, speaking of SEO, one of the reasons I was really excited to talk to you is that you're focusing on something that most lawyers are not, at least not focusing on themselves, and that's technical SEO. So will you explain in your own words what technical SEO is to you?
So for me, it means looking at the back end of the site and trying to make sure that things that are going on the back end, everybody gets concerned with the aesthetics of their site. And lawyers are so hung up on having these super sleek, sexy sites. And at the end of the day, that's really not very helpful unless clients can find it. And technical SEO is all about making sure that you're doing the things on the back end that drive traffic to your site that actually helps you get found. For me, that's what technical SEO means. Is my site functioning properly on the back end so that search engines actually find the site and I'm ranking high in the search engines, hopefully. That's what I think about.
Yes, I would have to agree. Seth Godin has a really great post that is years old now about how like ugly websites don't, or pretty websites don't sell, ugly ones do. And it's, I know Guy really ascribes to that, and we really like, we're going to make beautiful websites for our clients, but we're also going to make sure that they have all of this structure. Like the technical SEO on your site is like your skeleton and your muscles, and then like the what it looks like is your outside. So you've got to think about having all of that stuff underneath that can get you moving forward.
Right. So you're whatever the name of your firm is, if a lawyer's watching this, they need to know the difference between branded and unbranded searches. You're always going to win on the branded search. So Ben Sessions, attorney, Atlanta, I'm always going to win on that. You don't have to pay for that. You're going to win it 9 times out of 10. But the unbranded searches, the Atlanta DUI lawyer, Atlanta personal injury lawyer, Macon personal injury lawyer, that was sort of my first target. Those are the ones that you really need to make sure that the technical SEO is lined up in order to win at those. So, and until you start paying attention to that, or have someone who's really good paying attention to that for you, then you don't even have a shot. Your site could be as sexy as it can be, but it's never going to work if you don't have that lined up for you.
Yeah. So what are the, if whatever you're willing to share,
Sure.
Because hopefully
it's okay.
No one else in Atlanta or Macon is listening to this, but what are the kinds of things that you're doing? Like, do you have any sort of starting, like if you're putting your technical SEO in place, what would you recommend other lawyers do?
So I don't mean to promote some other service or anything like that on this.
I saw it on the bottom of your website. I knew it was coming, Ben.
So I'm not pitching them. In fact, I would probably be the anti them. But there is a service, Moz, that if you're a lawyer and you care about SEO and care about the performance of your site, it doesn't make any sense at all for you not to have some sort of monitoring service, whether or not it's Ahrefs or whether or not it is Moz, whatever it may be. You need to have some sort of external tracking in addition to Google Analytics for your site. So I use Moz. That's just because I went to one of their conferences a couple of years ago, and I said, hey, I like these folks. And I don't know that Moz's link tracking is necessarily the best, but it really helps me just to get an idea of where am I coming up this week for Macon personal injury lawyer, Columbus personal injury lawyer, Columbus DUI lawyer, whatever it may be. That's the first thing to me, is you need to have some sort of means in place to actually determine whether or not I'm doing the right things here. So go ahead and sign up for one of those services. It's $100 a month, and it'll probably be the best thing that you spend. Whether or not I know that there's other ones, Majestic and Ahrefs and Moz. There's all different competitors in that market. If you've got any of them, you're at least going in the right direction towards actually figuring out how well you're doing for the things. Now, you don't need to be figuring out whether or not you're number one for Ben Sessions, Atlanta, Georgia. You need to be figuring out where you are on those unbranded terms.
Yeah. And another one we like is SEMRush. That's a great one to use too.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that definitely is the first step, is like, where are you currently ranking for these things? And also, the competitive analysis piece of those things, of like, why are these law firms ranking? What is on their site? What are the things that they're doing?
Absolutely. I only know Moz just because I've never played around with any of the others. But in Moz, I can go in and look at, for example, what a competitor's website, how many backlinks do they have? Where do they get those backlinks from? If they're easy ones to get, I can go on there and just pick up a couple of those backlinks, just periodically over time, and try to just keep sort of what I try to do is match up as well as I can my basic backlink profile to their basic backlink profile. So if they've got links from some really reputable sources, it isn't going to help me pass them, but it's at least going to help me get on the same playing field as them. And then once I start getting to that point, then I can start doing some extra things to get ahead. So that's the way that I've always looked at it. It also gives you, they give me weekly insights just in terms of, these are things that you can do to try to help your site perform better. And I don't know whether or not they actually work or not. That's part of the technical things that I pay attention to. But I know that it makes me actually pay attention to, do I have my title tags lined up with my H1s, with my keywords that I'm actually trying to search for on those things. That would be something that for any lawyer who's trying to work in this sphere, who's trying to improve, they should know what a title tag is, what my H1 is, what my H2s are, And if you don't know what those are, then you need to learn that. Like, that's just sort of basic SEO stuff. And then the keywords that you're actually trying to target there to make sure all those things are lined up. Because if you're not really giving yourself a chance to win.
Yeah. And if you're using WordPress, they just did an update to Gutenberg publishing, they call it. So now it's a lot easier if you're not someone who knows, who sees the HTML code and you're like, oh, I don't want to do that. Now it's a lot easier, and you can just kind of drop and click this is an H1 heading, H2, that sort of thing. So
a lot of people don't know what WordPress is and that sort of thing. They don't even understand that there's any sort of content management system. I've used WordPress. I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's all right.
Someone started calling. Should I try to turn off my away?
All right.
Okay, so we were talking about content management systems, and a lot of lawyers just are not paying attention to things enough to know what content management system that you're actually using for your website. I used WordPress. I used it through a hosting service that I had problems with. It's a very popular hosting service. You need to know who your hosting service provider is. You need to know what your content management system service is. I was having problems with it, and I had problems with it on security. And one day I came in and my site was completely down because of some hacking thing that went on. I don't know what happened to it, but I swore that day that whatever that problem was, I was going to eliminate that out of my life. Because quite honestly, if I come in on a Monday and my site's down, that's the biggest moneymaker day of that week for me, and I can't afford for my site not to be up and servicing those locations on that day. So I switched over to a hosting provider. I'm not going to name them, that I pay for a service. If you go to my website, you'll see who I use. Quite honestly, I have real concerns about having any sort of proprietary platform as a content management system outside of WordPress. And if you work to develop a site for a very long period of time, you got a huge amount of content that you own on a platform that is a proprietary platform like I'm on right now. Mm-hmm. You're going to quickly figure out that you're kind of in a trap. You're going to have to spend a lot of money to get that content from that platform to a WordPress platform that you probably want to go to if you want to have optimal performance of your site. I know a lot about this stuff now. And I know that it literally hurts my soul to think about the amount of time and money that I've spent on that site and the content development. And now it's just like stuck there. And I'm stuck in a platform that quite honestly isn't performing optimally in terms of SEO stuff. I know that I would do better on the WordPress platform right now. So that's a lesson that I learned, that I hope that I saw that. For example, FindLaw was trying to make WordPress a thing recently. I saw that in a pitch that from some source, and I was like, if you're stuck in that FindLaw proprietary platform, you need to know that you're in a bad spot. And if you're a lawyer who's like been using one of those old services, really think about if you haven't paid a lot of attention to your website, then it's really easy to move it over to a WordPress. You probably aren't going to lose anything by virtue of just giving it up and moving over. And it's a really valuable thing for you to do if you don't know that already.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you know, Guy, you know that we've talked about, step number one, do not go with a proprietary platform because it is not something that you own. It's not open source. It's not, and so they hold the keys to your website kingdom. And so, I'm glad to have somebody else besides Guy and I spouting off this.
I mean, I've got somewhere between 700 and 1,000 pages posted on my site. Yeah. So if I go into Attorney Thing tomorrow and say, hey guys, I really want you to start working with me on the SEO stuff, you look at me like, okay, give me 15, 20 grand so that we can transfer that data over, because we got to go in and like basically manually scrape this information off the site in order to move it over to a WordPress. it really hurts you to think that I've built up all this time in that, and now I'm stuck in this thing. So WordPress really gives you some flexibility. So think about it if you're looking at it.
Awesome.
I used to use this thing. I don't even know if it's still around. Joomla.
Joomla.
Did you ever hear? It was an alternative to WordPress back in the day.
Yeah, I have heard that. I didn't have any experience with it. But yeah, that's some old school stuff there, but I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, I remember our first website whenever I was with my old partner. We were literally manually coding on the back end. Like, it was before we even knew about CMSs and that sort of thing. And there is some value to knowing what's going on back there. And you also figure out that things are really clean too if you're popular. Like on my platform that I use right now, the code is like just a mess. It's like there's all these additional things that are added in there for really no reason. I do think that there is some SEO value too by virtue of having clean code that's back there. Yeah. So kind of turn into a little bit of a tech nerd on this thing if you care about it, because it's important, I think.
Awesome. So we've covered like what your kind of go for technical know-how over beauty on your website, kind of the location sorts of things, not being on a proprietary platform, any other technical SEO goodies that you can think of?
Really, so a lot of lawyers have membership in organizations. Like, for example, Georgia Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, National College for DUI Defense, Georgia Association of Personal Injury Lawyers, whatever it may be. Make sure you're paying for that membership already. They give you the benefit of being in online directories. Don't waste your money and not get the link out of it. Like, that should be something that you're always thinking, because you have no idea how valuable those links can be over time. And I see lawyers all the time who don't pay attention to that. I'm like, you're paying $150 a year to be in that organization. Probably the highest value that you would get out of that organization is the backlinks on their site. Like, get it. It's really, really important. Another thing is, if you've never looked at Google Analytics, do it. Like, I can't even fathom this, that people wouldn't know what Google Analytics is and kind of what they can monitor there. Also, Google Webmaster tools. Make sure that you know what's going on in there, and the tools that are available to you. Those are completely free, and lawyers are the cheapest people on earth. So you should absolutely be taking advantage of those if you're not taking advantage of anything else. They're really easy. Google My Business. I mean, Google My Business is free right now. I can't believe that it is still free, but you can still go in there right now and you can populate it with, I went on pictures in there. I've got hundreds of pictures that are populated up there. You could even overlay the pictures with your phone number and your name if you wanted to. I don't do anything that's that fancy, but I mean, there's simple little things that you can do if you're just paying attention and using the free resources. I mean, if you went on every day on your Google My Business profile and just said, I'm going to type 100 characters here, and just says, call the Sessions Law Firm if you've been hit in a car accident, whatever it may be. It's just something short with a little photo on there. You would be shocked at the amount of business, the uptick in your business that you would probably see from that over time.
Yeah. And there's, I don't know if you follow Joy Hawkins at all, but she is kind of this amazing Google My Business. She's turned herself into a Google My Business expert because as much as you can when you don't work for Google. But she tracks all of the changes and all of the little updates. And it is fascinating to see the things that they are testing out and just all of these little tweaks that they're making. And they'll test something out today and then it'll be gone tomorrow. And then 6 months from now, it'll be back, but it'll be changed a little bit. And they're really trying to figure out how they can maximize that platform for people. And there's a definitely whispers in the digital marketing community, more sarcastically because this is years down the road, but of like, once you have your Google My Business, you don't need a website anymore. And that is not true right now. That is not true for the near future, but is just kind of this this sort of urban legend that's getting formed in digital marketing nerd communities.
One thing that I think, just from talking to other lawyers about it, they always express this. Well, hey, I don't want to invest all of this time, all of this money in something that obviously changes continuously in it. Do not let that uncertainty make you become stationary. That's like classic deflection whenever lawyers are doing that. It's like a great excuse. Hey, I won't do it because you know what? It's probably going to change anyways. That's bullshit. You should not be doing that. Like, you have to engage in this. You can no longer just stick your head in the sand and ignore it if you care. I mean, you might want to go work for someone else if that's what your perception is, because you're not paying attention to the business part of this anymore then. I just don't think that we can ignore it and just say, oh, well, there's uncertainty. You know what? Websites are going to go away one day, that kind of thing. Because, hey, there's a lot of money to be made in the meantime if you just paid attention to the things.
Exactly.
Not just an attorney rant that I have about those things. I just don't think that that you can let the uncertainty cause you to be paralyzed by virtue of it.
Yeah, 100%. I get that. You know, when as a lawyer, you've been trained to be an expert on specific things, and when you don't feel like you're an expert, it's like, oh, you know, I'll just put that to the wayside. My business is doing fine right now, but may not always. There may be a time when it comes when you do need to cultivate your own clients, and you're not just getting referrals.
That's right. So in that sort of old school thinking, well, I just rely on personal referrals. I think a lot of times too, lawyers hear other lawyers say that because the lawyers are trying to be untruthful about how they actually get their clients. Because I can tell you for a fact that if those same lawyers believe that, they would not have websites. And I can guarantee that I see them over and over again, huge personal injury firms that spend a ton of money on website SEO and pay-per-clicks and those types of things. Do you really think that their business is being driven by referrals? I don't believe it. I don't believe that for 1 minute. So whenever I hear a lawyer say that, I'm like, oh, you're deflecting from the truth, but that's okay. Like, I'll accept it for what it is, and just know that that probably isn't the truth anymore. And if you were a lawyer that was sticking by the yellow pages and didn't continue to evolve, you know what would happen to you now. I don't even have a yellow pages anymore. So I don't know what they would be doing if you were relying upon that mode of advertising. That was part of the reason why I started trying to engage in the Facebook, Instagram stuff, because I was like, oh, this is a tool that I'm not taking advantage of right now, and I really need to start at least trying it instead of just remaining sedentary where I was.
Yeah, awesome. So let's go into that. What are you doing for your Facebook and Instagram?
So there are, if you're a lawyer who pays attention to this stuff, you probably see that there's a certain company that's within this space that does these really high quality videos. They all look the same. They continue, and quite honestly, I may have that money to spend. I don't have that money to spend on that product. I'm not paying for a product that looks exactly like my competitors down the street. Right now, that's not my thinking at all. So what I've done is I started off just making simple videos from my phone about different topics. And at first, I was really uncomfortable with people seeing them. So I posted them on YouTube. And if you don't want anyone to see your videos, post them on YouTube. You won't have to worry about it. So if you just want to practice and say like, oh, I'm dabbling in this and I'm starting to produce these videos, and you just want like a few handful of lawyer friends to see it, post them on YouTube, because YouTube, you'll never get any traffic there. unless you're actually republishing them somewhere else where people will see them, that kind of thing. So if you just want to get comfortable with it, play on YouTube. That's my short way of saying, don't just publish your videos on YouTube, because it is not going to work for you at all if that's what your if that's what your ultimate goal is to drive business. So I started making them on YouTube, and I did that for probably like a year. I was like playing around on YouTube, trying to figure out if that was the thing. And then I was actually doing something that was pretty good with those videos. I was integrating them with my website. And I found that a lot of clients would call me and say, hey, I saw your video about this child abuse registry thing here in Georgia. And that really seemed to make sense with me. Can you help me? And I started hearing that a pretty good bit. So I was playing around with the YouTube videos and integrating them with my website. And then I said, hey, I really felt uncomfortable with the idea of publishing videos to my friends on Facebook. So I just made the decision that on my business page, I was going to start putting those videos up on just my business page, because I feel like if you followed me on my business page, then you've kind of given me implicit permission to publish some things to you that are kind of, hey, give me some business kind of thing. I felt more comfortable with that audience there. So I started pushing them on my Facebook business page, and you'll be surprised if you just sit down and talk with people on the videos, and you're just having like a real conversation about, this is what you need to be concerned about whenever you go and hire a lawyer. This is how people get scammed whenever they go and talk to a lawyer. These are different questions that you should ask. These are different concerns that you should have. I'm not even talking about the actual law. And a lot of people are not comfortable with talking about the law on the video. They're like, ooh, that seems like trouble to me. I'm just talking about like what real people need to be concerned about, because they've never been in that situation before. So I started doing those, and then I realized, like, hey, these are actually working. Like, people are engaging with them. People are talking with them. They're not fancy. They're like, they started off very short, like a minute and a half. Now I'm like comfortable blabbing on for 4 minutes or so. And it's cool. It's like, I've never had anyone that I have like a couple of DUI people who get on there and they're like, well, people shouldn't be drinking and driving, and just be respectful in your responses to them, engage. Like, they don't realize it, but they're actually helping the performance of the videos by virtue of like ranting on me and my practice. Like, if you then respectfully respond to them, people will see like, oh, you're not a crazy person, and hey, I like talking to this guy. He's easy to talk to. So,
that's a really good point on the comments, because I hadn't thought of that. I know that there was one of the older schools of thought is like, oh, well, I don't want an online presence because I don't want to get reviews. But I hadn't really thought about the worry of people commenting negatively on there. But you're right. The majority of people are going to go, okay, that person is crazy, or like, that person must have been affected by a drunk driver. And you know what? Right. That's unfortunate, but this guy is not doing anything, this lawyer is not doing anything wrong. He's doing his job and, fulfilling a need in the market.
That's right. That's exactly right. It's not as stressful as what people make it out to be in terms of Facebook. Can I jump over to something that you just said about the reviews?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the reviews are they're sort of far ends of the spectrum on reviews. There are people who care so much about reviews that they will do anything not to have a bad one, and there are people that don't even pay attention at all to reviews. I don't think that you need to be consumed with like hitting the 300 review mark or any of that nonsense. I do think that everyone as part of their practice needs to be really concerned about reviews, and particularly, I will explicitly say that I am no longer seeking Avvo reviews. I don't want to give anyone reviews on a proprietary platform other than Google. Because I just think that, like, hey, I saw what Avvo did to us whenever they switched hands, and I don't even have my phone number up there anymore, and I'm not going to pay them to put my phone number up on that website anymore. I'm like, I'm done with giving you guys content. So I'm focused on getting Google reviews. That's where the predominance of my clients come from the internet. And I really do pay attention to those. And I've made a concerted effort to make sure that I'm getting reviews consistently from clients. I don't know. I know that there are some services that are okay in terms of review gating. If you don't know what review gating is, you better learn it, because you might very well be spending a lot of money on a review service that could very well lose reviews for you in the future or get you in some real trouble in connection with them. That's always been my concern.
Yeah.
So lawyers say, well, I don't have time to pay attention to reviews, just like I don't have time to pay attention to SEO stuff. You may not have time to pay attention to it right now, but I promise you down the road, whenever your business starts drying up, slowing down, you're going to have time to do it then. And it's too late then. You can't catch up on reviews 4 years down the road. You need to be a part of it. We all have clients that are a little bit off the rocker. It's just the nature of the work. I mean, everybody does. You really need to think. I started thinking about this recently because of a problem. I mean, it's problems are what teach us lessons. I had a client who, if I had done any sort of research into my client, personal injury client, she had consistently given negative reviews on her Google My Business, and she had a lot of them. And I've seen this with other people who have problems with Google reviews as well. The client had given consistently negative reviews. There was clearly some issues with emotional stability in our relationship, and I was very concerned about it, because I was worried that this person would go on there. And you need to be worried about negative reviews. You really do. That's a possibility that lawyers need to look at. If you have a low volume practice, you need to know whether or not you're dealing with clients who are really volatile that could really hurt your business going forward. Because if you only got a handful of clients every year, if you got 10 or 20 clients and one of them is a bomb waiting to go off in your office, you got to really be conscientious of that. And you might want to even consider, depending on the value of the case, not taking on that client as a result of that. Because if you take it on, then you have to know that there's some real risk associated with it that might cost you some business down the road. So that was just kind of my side thought on reviews, because I think that they're really important.
Yes, I agree. I want to make sure we get into one other area that we've kind of covered it on an episode before, but that is paid Facebook. Because I know that's one of the things that you're doing that is getting you clients.
Yes. So I started playing around with this a little bit ago, and I say playing around with this. Y'all, you have to know you can do paid Facebook paid ads really cheaply. Mm-hmm. Like, it is not in my old partnership, I saw Google pay-per-click bills that were 15, 20 grand consistently on a monthly basis. I'm not playing in that sphere anymore. I just refuse to dabble in it. To me, it's a treadmill that once you get on, it gets very difficult to get off of it. If you haven't experienced that, go throw $5,000 or $10,000 at a Google pay-per-click ad one month and see how easily that you can jump off of it the next month. It's really hard to get off of it once you get on it. It's sort of, in some ways, that budget consumes your business. To me, it has a bad effect on your business. And I know people have had good success with it consistently. That has not been my experience so far with Facebook ads and with Instagram ads and that sort of thing. And Facebook and Instagram, for all practical purposes, are the same entity for me now. And whenever you're managing the account, whenever you're looking at the account, you'll see that they're integrated together almost seamlessly whenever it's functioning properly. So, and you can make very small bets on a consistent basis, and it will drive some business for you. And it's going to drive, I think, it's hard for me to put hard numbers on it so far in the time that I've done it, but I have seen overall a really good uptick in business. And I just think if you're doing the right things in those videos, I think videos are the way to do it. I usually promote the videos for engagement of the audience and that sort of thing. And I just think that to me is the way to really drive some business out of that.
Yeah.
Pay attention to the Facebook pixel. If you don't know what that is, that's sort of their analytics on the back end of it. So make sure that you're paying attention to that service and make sure you're taking advantage of it as well as you can. It's something that I'm trying to figure out how to use it more effectively as well right now.
Yeah. And so if anybody doesn't know Facebook Pixel, it's their tracking code that you install on your website. And then that will get your 90 or 180-day website visitors and retarget them through Facebook ads. So yeah, we use that. We like it. We do paid Facebook as well. And I think the thing you said about videos, that's on our episode with Asta Madan. She talked about using a video promoting a webinar to get people kind of into a funnel, and that she, like you, tried a few different things and was like, videos are the way to go.
Yeah. I was going to say something about Facebook ads, and the thought completely escaped me as soon as I opened my mouth.
Well, I know you wanted to mention the analytics and tracking and something about that there, and kind of, I think you've learned some stuff about that.
So I definitely think that that you figuring out people don't know how to use tracking numbers and that sort of thing. I recently have kind of become obsessed with them. I just think that until we start actually looking at where the business is coming from, it's very hard to tell whether or not it's working. And we just want to just say, oh, everything's good, and start looking more critically at where it is that you're actually getting them. Tracking numbers is the first thing that you need to do. And looking at that, I just think it's really important, far more important than when I gave it credit for early on. I used to just ignore it as well.
Yeah, I mean,
make sure you're keeping up with your tracking numbers.
Yes. Doing a specific number that you use. CallRail is the one that we typically use, where you can get these dedicated phone numbers, and using those, and then it takes a little time to get these set up and to kind of get used to using UTM codes as well. But those are just things where they take a little bit of extra time, a little bit of forethought. But when you do that, you get all of this golden information of like, oh, yeah, my Facebook ad is actually working because that's the number they're calling to get to the office. Or like my boosted Instagram post or Facebook post is working because the link that I put in there with the UTM code is actually the one that's getting clicks, not just our blog post on our website. Like all of these little things that help show you where you're actually getting your clients from.
So I have another partnership with another lawyer that we target a specific community right outside of Metro Atlanta. We opened up the office there, and we decided that we would run a very traditional ad in a local newspaper. We put a tracking code on the phone number that's from there. We have a website on some of the ads, but for the most part, it's a phone number that's listed there. Call us. As a result of that, we know that we have gotten almost zero calls from that traditional paid advertisement. Without that information, you would not have been able to attribute, hey guys, whenever you come back over and pitch us, you better know that the price that you come with needs to reflect that I've gotten virtually zero calls out of this. And I'm not here for becoming entrenched as a name in this community. I'm here for calls. So whenever it gives you the ability to then like really look at it and say, no, I know for a fact that I'm not getting business off of your service. And that's a great way to cut it out. If nothing else, you're eliminating some waste that's there.
Yep. Oh, that testing is the right idea. I at previous company did radio advertisements and had a dedicated landing page and a dedicated phone number, and was able to tell them like, yeah, actually neither of our things, we didn't get calls on that number and we didn't get website visits. So we're not going to spend another dollar with you, but thank you so much. It was a great experiment.
Right. Right. For anyone who's still paying for directories, I am ultra averse to directory paid listings. I just think it's like people, the day and age whenever you could just set it and forget it for almost everything is gone. You can't do that anymore. So if you're still paying for those directory listings on the internet, of whatever source that you're doing it, just really look at it. I'm just not going to hardly pay for anything, with the possible exception of Google, where you're going to put me listed out with 5 other people. Like, that's just not a thing that I'm going to do. I think for the most part, we're paying for their SEO work, like with that budget. So
yeah, that's kind of true. Awesome. Well, I think we have covered the gamut of so many different things on your digital marketing, and I really valued getting your insight on the technical SEO and paid Facebook and all sorts of other things. So it was so great to meet you and chat with you today.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
Yes. So if anyone does want to get in touch with you, is there an easy way that they should get in touch with you or follow you on social media or anything like that?
Yeah, follow me on Facebook, The Sessions Law Firm.
There you
go. Get all my
videos
then.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ben. Thank you to all of our clienting listeners. As always, subscribe, leave us a review on Apple Podcast, and until next time.
Thank you.